Yeah, what's the deal, my people? Let's do it. How A Song of Ice and Fire Will End, Part 1, The War. First, I will say that since I am not George R. R. Martin, I do not know how it will end. This is my take on what I have read and what my conclusions I have drawn from reading anything related to A Song of Ice and Fire. So, there will be spoilers for everything ever written by George R. R. Martin or associated with his works. Therefore, this is speculation and should be taken as such. I hope this video leads to more thoughts and further discussion on this great book series that has created a fandom that spans cultures, countries, ages, sexes, races, and breaks down language barriers and shows us in the end that we're all just human. And this book ends, we must look where it had started and how it was written. The themes I am using are things aren't what they seem. To prove the point, things aren't always what they seem. Let's look at the big elephant in the room, the war. And let's look why the wall was built. Let's take the story first at face value. The wall was created 8,000 years prior to the present settling by Brandon the Builder after the long night to defend the realm of Melon against the wildling and others. Approximately 300 miles in length and 700 feet high, the wall is protected by the Night's Watch, and according to some, ancient spells and sorcery. Supposedly, Brandon the Builder had placed its foundations along the heights wherever possible. Several mentions in the text suggest that the wall was much smaller at the time, having been built upon by the Night's Watch builders who quarried huge blocks of ice from frozen lakes in the haunted forest and dragged them south to make the wall higher, raising it over the centuries to its present size. However, it severely reduced the Night's Watch at the present time in limited maintenance duty, and a total of 19 fortresses have been built along the wall. Only 3, the Shadow Tower, Castle Black, and East Watch by the Sea, are occupied at the start of A Song of Ice and Fire. So, this seems to be a solid reason of having the wall. Unfortunately, this is only half true. The story being told is from a Westerosi perspective, because they won the war. We are seeing the records and the events of the people that won the war to make their people look like heroes. So let's look at the real story of the war and why I believe it was really built. They say the wall was created by Brandon the Builder, who was Brandon Stark, the King of Winter. Now, I do think Brandon was a skilled builder and helped in many constructions, and there were many things built under his watch. But I don't think the wall was one of them. But I do think he was there, just not his involvement wasn't as much as they gave him credit for. I think it was to be built to keep out the wildlings and the others, or that's what they claim. First, built to keep out the wildlings. That, I guarantee, was something thrown in many years after the Night's Watch was formed, and they used this propaganda to perpetuate the mistreatment of the wildlings, deeming them as animals, which we have seen is not true. It's only an excuse to keep the culture of people at bay and where they want them. We see this on border patrols that have honorable jobs to stop drugs from being smuggled into countries. But we also see that they use their power to abuse people who are just looking for a better life and escape from a long night, one might come to say. But the next part is also a lie, which is it was raised to keep out the others. Let's look at the logic of the story. Who are the others? The others shown by HBO are not the others described by George R. R. Martin in A Song of Ice and Fire. I will show the picture of the show because I think most people associate them with this look, but this can't truly be what they are. They truly cannot be ugly beings. And George R. R. Martin says they are elf-like looking beings, beautiful and angelic in their own way. We know this is true because the Night's King, former Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, fell in love and married a female White Walker under a weirwood tree. His name was then wiped from history and he was deemed an abomination. Now this to me is another half-truth. We know the Night's Watch is made up of jealous criminals who are sent to the ends of the world in their own mind. We see how they react to Gilly and other women that they see throughout the show. Now imagine a woman more beautiful than any human is spotted, and your Lord Commander, a guy who has everything already, claims her for himself. He breaks his vows and marries her and has sex with her, while you're forced to keep your vows, play with yourself, and stay cold. So I believe they mutinied, as we've seen them do before, the Night's King, and gave him the name the Night's King after they killed his queen. He escaped, the Night's King did, to his new people in the lands of always winter after this mutiny occurred. Now, they covered their tracks, the Night's Watch, by not allowing anyone to speak of this and wiping his name from all of the record books. Now, me personally, I don't think this was the first or the last marriage between a White Walker and a human, and I'll speak more on that later. So the White Walkers, or what we know about them, are this: they can control the dead. And George R. R. Martin said they can do things to ice that humans can't comprehend. We know that they are killed when they are touched by dragon glass, obsidian, or whatever you want to call it, and Valerian steel blades work on them, and fire is effective as well. Now, hearing all this, it's hard for me to consider why these guys are such a threat. Now, if you had 1,000 men and you spanned them across the wall, and you gave them all dragon glass tipped arrows, you had huge scorpions with shooting dragon glass darts and buckets of wildfire dropping all over the White Walker and their army, and warriors with Valerian steel blades down low just to clean up whatever is left. And I'm not even going to go into dragons less, because at this time there are no dragons around. But how could they seem like such a threat? It seems to me this would be an easy war if it was come today in Westeros, and there would just be knights there eager to get into this battle because it would just be so easy and it would have so much glory. And that is why I believe that is why it cannot be that way. And let's look at the wall itself. If the White Walkers advance directly straight into the wall, which they want you to believe, that would be a great defense. No, no, it wouldn't be. That works on humans because it's so high. But beings, George R. R. Martin said, can do things with ice humans can't comprehend. Hiding behind a giant wall of ice seems silly to me, if not downright stupid, because I can comprehend the White Walkers touching the wall and making it shatter, or even melt. I can also comprehend them merging into the wall and coming out the other side of it. And I know people may say that it has magic, and this magic by the children of the forest will stop them, which I must say has never been proven. And we see undead other try to kill Mormont on the other side of the wall, and the wall magic didn't affect him. And the only thing that did affect him was his arm melted before it reached King's Landing, because it was going to be shown to King Robert. And it only seemed that the heat had more effect on the undead body, more than the magic of the wall itself. So, who really built the wall and why? The real answer: the wall was built by the White Walkers, with help from the children and the giants in front of Bran the Builder, who was given credit for building this. And this is why they would do this. First, let's look at Old Nan's tale of the Old Night and understand what's going on during the Old Night. Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was so cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swine herds in their huts. Women smothered their children rather than starve them, and cried and felt their tears freeze on their cheeks. In that darkness, the others came for the first time. They were cold things, dead things. that hated iron and fire and the touch of heat from the sun, and every creature with hot blood in its veins. They swept over holdfasts and cities and kingdoms, felled heroes and armies by the score, riding pale dead horses, leading hosts of the slain. All of the swords of men could not slay their advance. And from what we hear, they were winning this war, the others, very easily. They swept over holdfasts and cities and kingdoms, felled human heroes and armies by the score. So with all this success, we are to believe that one man named Azor with his magic sword came after sacrificing the love of his life and rallied the remaining troops and defeated the whole White Walker army, basically single-handedly. Then built the wall to protect the realm of men with Brandon Stark, the king of the north. Now, you're smart, and I know you don't believe in fairy tales, do you? Because that, to me, sounds like one right there. Now, the real story of how A Song of Ice and Fire will end, I'm going to get into right now. If Old Nan's tale is true, and it is, it's bent, but it's true, we see the White Walkers took over everything. Every kingdom, cities, wiped out. No way this just happened from them coming from one direction. And we have been told about this attack and how it would happen. And we were told by the prophet of the great other, or should I say the prophet of the drowned god, the servant of the great other, who is Patchface. Now, Patchface takes his name from the tattoos covering his face and bald head, marking the pattern of green and red squares. This is the fashion of the free city of Volantis for slaves and service in his youth. He was a clever boy with astonishing wit. After his accident, however, his mind and body were broken. After his survival from the shipwreck, he is described as soft and obese, subject to twitches and tremors, and has a weird sideways walk. Now, we must remember this. This happened because they were searching for Rhaegar Targaryen's bride, right? Now, Rhaegar Targaryen is the person who would birth the champion of Valor. Valor is the person who is battling the Great Other. This also took a person who was a slave from Volantis. That's who Patchface was. So a slave from Volantis, fire people, they stole him. So the drowned god sunk that ship and took possession over Patchface at that moment. Melisandre, a servant of her lord, knows that he is working for the Great Other, and she says to Jon Snow, that creature is dangerous. Many times I have glimpsed him in my flames. Sometimes there are skulls about him, and his lips are red with blood. Now, Patchface says, the crow, under the sea the crows are white as snow. I know, oh, oh, oh. He also says, I will lead it. We will march into the sea and out again. Under the waves we will ride seahorses, and the mermaids will blow seashells to announce our coming. Oh, oh, oh. Now, if you take this and what Old Nan says, how far the White Walker army spread throughout the kingdoms, with the fact that George R. R. Martin said that they can control ice, and ice is water, it would seem that the attack did come back then and will come again, as history will repeat it from itself, from the waters, which makes the wall totally useless. Unless the wall was meant to stop the spread of humans going farther north and not the White Walkers coming south. And the wall has been very effective in stopping the humans spreading north. So why was the wall built? I think it can be found once again in the most reliable person that we see so far in this books, and that is Old Man. She spells out to me the ending of this story, and it goes like this. So as the cold and death filled the earth, the last hero determined to seek out the children. He set out into the dead lands with a sword and horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. For years he searched until he despaired over finding the children of the forest in their secret cities. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his dog. And his sword froze so hard that the blade snapped when he tried to use it. So, we see Azor is not this great hero killing White Walkers with ease, like it seems to be portrayed in the stories. He's beaten, defeated. He's down to a dozen men, and he's searching for the children of the forest. And all those men are dying off one by one. So, if we place Jon Snow in the place of the last hero, I think this is how it will end. So, as the cold death fills the earth, Jon Snow, determined to seek out the children, he set out into the lands of always winter with Longclaw, a horse, and a direwolf, and a dozen companions. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his direwolf. And his sword, Longclaw, froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it. Jon will be guided by Bran to the lands always winter to find them. So I don't believe it's going to take him years like it did take Azor Ahai. Now, Bran is in this story because Bran is needed to broker a pact between the White Walkers and the humans, just like the children did for Azor Ahai. So why would the White Walkers take the pact if they were winning the war? Now, the reason I believe they would do this is the children of the forest can see the future. The children of the forest saw the dragons, and if you look at it, everything related to dragons kills White Walkers. Dragonglass, dragonfire, Valyrian steel blades. And I think with this knowledge, the White Walkers knew that they would need an ally, if ever the day would come that they had to face the dragons. So they agreed to end the war, and build the wall, and promised not to invade. And if ever the fire dragons attacked or threatened the White Walkers, they would have an ally to help fight them off. And I think this ally that agreed to this pact, and the person who agreed to this, was Brandon the Builder, Brandon Stark, the King of Winter. And I think it was forged through the best way all alliances are forged in this story. And I think it was formed through some sort of marriage. And I think that pact will have to be forged again. And we'll talk about who will be forging that pact and how it will be forged in part 2. Until then, subscribe, thumbs up it, tell your peoples about me, and spread this across the realm. Peace, and stay sexy.